if you've been living under a rock, there's a thing called opening round, which is games are played in the northern states to try and get more emphasis on those particular markets, which I all agree with. I have no issue with that. No drama whatsoever. And we've been going 2 years of it, and Collingwood Football Club have travelled and done the opening round 2 years in a row, which is okay by me. They're a big club. They're all good. Good to see. But then Craig McRae comes out last week and says, we need to share it around. We've travelled twice for opening round. We need to share it around because, why should Collingwood have to do that when, there's all these other clubs? They should, have their fair share of the pie. And deep down, I went, he's kidding himself, isn't he? And I think a lot of people around town, when they heard that, would have said, seriously? Except Collingwood supporters going, yeah, that's right. We should share it. Why should we be the ones that, have to go and travel over in opening round and go and support those clubs up there? And I was like, well, yeah, it's understandable. But then a little bit of inside me went, well, I'd love to know actually how much they've travelled, because their home ground is the MCG. And we know they play a lot of games at the MCG. So I decided to do a bit of research. And what I've gone ahead and done is I've gone ahead and tabulated some information where I've gone back into the archives and I've found all the away teams where they were the away team and how many games they've played at that particular venue for the last 15 seasons. So from round 1, 2010 to round 4, 2025, tabulated them all across. Now, I didn't want to put all 18 teams up there because Gold Coast and GWS, they haven't played that full breadth, so I took them out. But I wanted to try and get a bit of an even spread. So I've actually narrowed it down to 7 teams. And I'm just going to display this up on the screen for you. So I've gone Essendon, Fremantle, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide, Richmond, Sydney, and the Western Bulldogs. And then you've got Collingwood as the main sort of draw at the start. So if you have a look at this, Collingwood have played 175 games as the away team in total from round 1, 2010 to round 4, 2025. And virtually across the board, that ranges with the other teams from anything from 170 to 179 all the way up to the Sydney Swans, which is sort of understandable because they are a travelling team. There's not many other, grounds that they would play at, even though they would have their main ones, if that makes sense. But this is where everything gets a little bit interesting, J-Dog. So I've also gone ahead and thought, well, people are going to say, yes, but they're a big club, Peps. They're a big club. And so they have to play at the MCG. I went, well, that's not a bad point. How about I go get a couple of other big clubs? So I went and got Essendon, and I also got Richmond. One team had just recently won 3 flags, and the other club, Tony Mockbell has been locked away for 18 years, and he hasn't even seen a Essendon final victory in that amount of time. But they're still a big club. Well, out of the 175 away games that Collingwood have played, they played 75 of those at the MCG. Now, Essendon, who is a Marvel Stadium tenant, they've played 53 at the MCG. So you think, okay, that's not too bad. But what about Richmond? Richmond would be on par with Collingwood. No, they've only played 51. So they're 24 games less at the MCG, but there's only a 3-game difference in the number of away games that they've played. And Richmond are an original co-tenant who would arguably have the same amount of followers and supporters as Collingwood would. Would we tend to agree on that with their supporter base?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Have a look at this. How many times have Collingwood travelled out of their 175 games to the Docklands? Well, Fremantle, out of their 170 games, in a completely different state, 3 to 4 hours away, depending if you're downhill or uphill, have played at the Dockland Stadium 45 times. The only team that's played more out of this group here is North Melbourne on 52 times at the Dockland Stadium. Collingwood have played a whopping 18 times in 15 years at Marvel Stadium.
So one a year, maybe two.
If that. Fremantle, on average, go to Marvel Stadium 3 times a year. And they've got to fly 4 hours to get there. Collingwood have to drive 5 minutes. But as Big Kev would say, but wait, there's more. You want to hear some crackers? Have a look at this one. Cardinia Park. Western Bulldogs have been there 11 times in this time frame. Sydney, 10 times. North Melbourne, 10 times. Fremantle, other side of the country, 9. Port Adelaide, an hour and a bit away, 8 times. Collingwood, in this entire time frame, have not gone to Cardinia Park once. Scott Pendlebury, in his 597-game career, has not played at Cardinia Park.
In all that time?
In all that time. Can I go another one for you?
Love it.
Collingwood haven't even been to York Park. They haven't been to Tasmania either in that entire time.
Not once in the
not
15
once.
years.
No. Nope.
Not one game against Hawthorn or anything?
Nope. Not against Hawthorn, not against North Melbourne. They have not gone to Tassie once.
What about like Port Adelaide or someone like that?
Port Adelaide have been to, well, they've been to the Bellerive Oval 4 times. They've been to York Park 3 times. It's a disgrace, Jamie. This is a disgrace. So, when we say that Collingwood had the rub of the green, the stats here do not lie. If you are a smaller club, you're going to go and be sent somewhere. If you're Collingwood, you're basically going to play at the MCG, and we have to send you to some of these other grounds as well. Richmond have played at the Adelaide Oval. Richmond have played at the Adelaide Oval 22 times. Collingwood 11. How do you explain this, Jamie? Like, the anomalies in the way this is all set up does not make any sense. Mind you, they're pretty even when it comes to Perth Stadium, the SCG, and the Gabba.
Well,
and the Adelaide Oval. All right? So basically what we're saying is this. They only play at the bigger grounds, and that's it. So it's not a draw. This literally shows that the fix is in fixture because they don't travel. And the AFL are all worried about the dollars. We know that, not about the fairness in the competition itself. And the numbers here do not lie at all.
Peps, over that period, can you just also remind me of those clubs on that sheet there?
Yep.
I'm pretty confident that Richmond was the AFL leaders in members, weren't they?
I think that they were.
Through a period of about 3 or 4 years there?
Yep. Didn't matter. They still went to...
So you can't use the argument of like having the most members, we need to cater for the most members?
No, they went to Manuka Oval, Collingwood haven't. They went to Bellerive Oval, Collingwood haven't. They went to York Park, Collingwood haven't. They went to Football Park, virtually twice as much. They went to Cardinia Park 4 times. They haven't. Like the numbers just don't lie. Like 1, 1, 1, 2. Like, no wonder why clubs, when you hear Collingwood come out and say, it's time for us to share it around. Well, you can't have, like I said before, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We have to share it around here, but when it comes to these smaller venues, we can't share those around.
Yeah.
It's a farce. It is, and it's an absolute farce But because the AFL is all about this and they don't care about the equality of things, it's never going to happen. So I had to bring this to the forefront to show people that, yes, what you think is actually true. I've got the full list as well for the whole 18 teams as well. Some of them are absolutely classics. Like Melbourne have played there, I think, 14 times out of the last 15 years down at Cardinia Park. So how does one team play down there virtually every season and one team doesn't play there at all?
Do you think, though, that there is a bias against Collingwood when it comes to this sort of stuff? So, and I'll speak openly here. What was your gut feel when Houston made the hit on, what was it, Thursday night?
I said 2 weeks. I did say 2 weeks. Because, yeah, I said 2 weeks. Because if he got concussed, it would have been 3 or more. Mm-hmm. All right. It was too low for a 1 weeker, so it had to be 2. Because he left the ground, he hit him. Mind you, that's because of the way it's plugged in. It should have been more.
Off the ground.
Off the ground, tucked his elbow in. And for anybody to say that he didn't mean that, if that was Toby Green, it would have gone to the tribunal.
Well, I think that's what people are sort of getting at. They're saying, if we look at the push last week, the push last week, the Archie thing, lots of examples of it. People were saying it should be 5+, considering he did the exact same thing to Rankin last year in the in round, where it was round 20 something. But there's a perception that people said, well, because he plays for Collingwood now, he'll get 0 for this because Michael Christensen's part of the AFL system. He'll get him off. He'll work him off, and blah 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 blah. And I just want to address that, Peps, because I think that there is a bit of an unconscious bias towards Collingwood.
Yeah,
because I see what you're saying, and I see the numbers you're putting up. But they have been the biggest club now for probably 2 decades. Okay. And so they might deserve a little bit of those numbers because they are playing a Melbourne teams at the venue. And those clubs are probably more than happy to play Collingwood on the MCG.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But J-Dog, how is it that if you look at all games by venue, right? And I'm talking about from 2000. How does a team have 120? Now, if I go back to round 1 2000, that's as far as I can go back. How can a team have 128 away games at the MCG of their 294 when Melbourne, who is a co-tenant, have only 84? How can a team have gone down to Cardinia Park 0 times, yet Melbourne have gone down 19 times?
I think what you're saying is far more compelling of that thing that you're saying that both 2 Melbourne co-tenanted teams at the MCG, one's playing 128 times over the 15-year period, and the other, Melbourne, has played half that amount again.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they've played like 2/3 of that. And Richmond have played 85.
That is a compelling number to me.
That's just... Yep. Now, we'll take the honesty factor. Teams love playing Collingwood at the MCG. Why? Because it's big bucks for the club. I understand that wholeheartedly. But I do think that the AFL need to send them at least once a year to a smaller venue. They have to send them down to Cardinia Park holds 40,000 odd now. It's not a small stadium.
No, not anymore, it's not.
Okay. You can get a ticket there. Go and play there.
The problem is, and Peps, you've probably experienced this, and I've experienced it even being a Port Adelaide person living in this town.
Yep.
Is tickets are really hard to get actually to Cardinia, and also very expensive.
Oh,
so
they're $60.
Go,
$60 for a general admission ticket to go to GMHBA Stadium.
Correct.
Fast.
So some people probably don't want to go.
No, I get that. But these numbers, like I said, they just don't lie, J-Dog. They just don't lie. And I don't know what more I can say about them. You can see them here. I might put a link in the chat to the full document as well too, so you can have a look for you to download. But yeah, it's just fascinating when you look at this to really show how one club has just got it so much better than others. And
I always find it really fascinating for when you look at the sports landscape, right? And it's all, and you've got NFL, NBA, like all the other sports. NRL, I think maybe a little bit, not so. I'm not too much into the NRL crowd, but anyway, fixture seems to be the thing that always is the thing that our supporters always talk about. It is unfair.
Yep.
Yet I don't really ever hear that with your NFLs and NBAs and MLBs and stuff like that.
No.
Like I always find it really fascinating that the Australian supporter of AFL, it seems to be the biggest contention where people just go, it is an unfair system.
But the NFL, you don't play every team. You're in a conference sort of setup as well. So do we need to start looking? We're going to have a 19th team come in. I think the only way that you can do it is what I proposed a number of weeks ago, where you play every club once, and then at the start of...
You had me there, but then you lost me after that.
Yeah. After once?
It was complicated.
No, basically what you do is, it's. I'll just quickly repeat what it was, everybody. What you do is, at the start of, let's say the first year, you then, you basically, at random, have three segments, I don't know, three pillars, three groupings. And what you would do is you would put each team into a grouping. All right? And how it works is that you would play all 18 teams and 6 from the other group. There's your 24 games. And then the next year, you play every team once, and then the next group of 6, and then the year after, you play that group and the next group of 6. So basically, you play every team 4 times over 3 seasons. It's the only fair way of doing it.
And that,
or we go to
problem is the fact that you get these teams that just have these amazing bounces.
Yep.
Go from like 14th on the ladder, they just shoot up to the top 4.
So
because of the way that it's drawn at the moment, because they start playing all these clubs that is just completely off.
Exactly right.
Just bounce down. Yeah.
So you just, and then it just takes the randomness out of it. Whoever's good at that time, great. Whoever's bad at that time, great. Can't do anything about it. That's it. Too bad, too sad.